Good evening, everyone, and you can finally hear me now. I have been talking to myself for a little bit, but just a few technical issues in the background, but seems like we're all sorted. And yeah, welcome to another round of Simsport Racing International here now at the Nurburgring. Track conditions, as you can see, a little bit tricky right now for qualifying. We're currently just 5 minutes into the session, getting the first few lap times coming through. 2:04.5 for Denise Pope is a pretty decent time, I must say, for starting conditions in these. But because of the track's going to be drying out and it's going to be getting more and more of a dry line, I think we're going to be seeing these times plummet further and further down. Maybe not quite into the low 50s as you'd expect with the optimum conditions, but nevertheless, we do have them probably and most likely going to be going below that 2-minute mark, and I wouldn't be surprised if it goes below the 55 point either. But yes, so you are all on the Simsport Racing International YouTube channel. You're probably aware of that as you clicked on it, but this is round 3 of the GT3 series, and it runs every other Tuesday. We were running through the events previously, so with this being round 3, and we've seen 2 brilliant races so far with the opener at Paul Ricard and Brands Hatch last time round. This one is of course the Nurburgring. Next up then we're going with Laguna and Monza after that, and then last but not least Donnington Park and Zandvoort, as you can see now on screen. So those run every other week. We are full currently, but with the amount of dropouts we have a few every so often. We've got a reserve list. If people are watching and interested, do get yourselves hopping in and do get involved, as although I think it's a max grid of 50, we haven't quite hit the number here. I think we've got a good number of 40 odd, but not quite the full, which is unfortunate, but it should still be plenty of good racing, especially on a track like Nurbs, which is all about the flow. It doesn't exactly offer too many overtaking spots because of the flow of the track. There's not really that many hard braking zones, which is normally the place you'd expect to see the overtaking in. But yeah, it's one of my favourite tracks, I have to say. Driving around here is great, especially when you hook up a lap. The only thing I would say is it's so easy to lose time on a track like this, especially Sector 1, which is so complex going through the Castrol S's that yeah, it's very easy to just put a tyre wrong, just be a little bit offline. But yes, the splits, as you can see, with the different colours on the left hand side, we do have Silver, Pro and Am classes, which in this case we have, I think we're just looking at the Silver and Am on the left hand side. I believe we've split it into 10 minutes each side, so currently you have your final few laps. I think it's only 1 minute and 40 left of the Silver and Ams to go out and push their fastest times. Currently that is a 2:02.2 for the man on screen now, Tim Maris, but he's not really got that much of a gap to second place in Morgan there. But on the other hand, in the Am class, Fredriksson has, again, it's not a huge gap, it's just a couple tenths to Wouter, who is tied leading the points in the AMs at the moment. So, you know, with the track conditions evolving and getting quicker every lap, pushing out your fastest laps now is so much more important. And as you can see, every so often you get a little glimpse of a splash from the rear of the car, which is indicative that I think the conditions are still a little bit greasy. So I'm unsure exactly what the preferred tyre choice would have been. If you went out on wets, it's possible that it could have been faster. You definitely get them up to temperature, but I think it might be even, well, if from my experience, I'd say actually the wets would still have been just about the quicker tyre in these conditions. It's probably going to be harder for the pros who come out within the next 30 seconds to get a chance to, because their conditions might just be teetering over to the dry tyres, which, well, looking at an onboard shot, it does now seem dry. It's very, very hit or miss. You're at that border, you're at that boundary, just trying to figure out which is which. But as we get to the final seconds now for these guys on their laps, Van Schaik up into second. Again, just a 10th off the top, which is Dooley with a 2:01.7. Fredriksson had massive improvements then, went up to 4th with the AM class. That's a huge improvement. He's a second up on his next closest class competitor. Schellekens, though, is currently a second up on this lap. The question is, with the track going, and I think he's actually might have a car ahead, which could spell the end of his lap, because you're not allowed to overtake other cars on valid laps. So it all depends on how Denise Pope just in front does either help or hinder. It's going to be very, very close, but as you can see, a load of cars have just come out of the pits, starting to prep themselves on their out laps. Those will be your pro drivers, and they will be taking the last 10 minutes. So it's, as we say, this is the last chance saloon for the other drivers. Fredriksson did actually get pipped to that AM pole. Wouter nicked it by a very, very close margin. Only, I think, 200ths in that. It's Frans van der Linden we just hopped to now, crossing the line. What is this going to be? He's quite a speedy driver, and he does indeed take it all the way to the top, but quickly knocked off that top spot by Mick Schellekens. 2:09, that top time. And I do believe that that may have been your final driver to have crossed the line for the silver. So now, as we say, all down to the pros and what they can do. And as you can see, those track times are evolving, so I expect thoroughly that that 2-minute time is smashed and we get those sub 2 minutes. Good evening, chat, by the way. Welcome all. It is just me in the booth tonight. Unsure if Dave will or will not be having a little chat with me. I don't think so, but I hope you can all you know, get along with my voice for the whole 80 minutes of the race, as well as all this qualifying. But yes, good evening, Lulu, and Robbie as well. Welcome all. We have the pros, which should, in theory, be the faster guys on track now, and a lovely looking Lamborghini, I must say, there for Peter Veneer. I do love the Lamborghini in this game. It was the car I ran for endurance last season. I don't think my team were too happy with that choice, but I was, because I also ran it in my first sprint season here at Simsport Racing International. Whereas on the other hand, we have Filippi in the Porsche. Probably it's hard to judge whether or not it is the nicest looking car in my I like all these cars for different reasons. It's a tough one to figure out, but it's definitely the car that is probably the best through tight, well, I'd say the best at keeping momentum through corners is the Porsche. There's something about it that just glides through so much quicker than everyone else. So in expectation, you'd maybe say it's going to be the fastest car around here, but then it all depends more on the meat behind the wheel than the car in front, or the car on track, because you can be given a fast car, but if you don't know how to drive that car right, you don't know how to drive it properly, then it doesn't really make a difference what machine you're using. It's all down to the driver behind the wheel. As look at that, Luca Filippi going right to the top, but then just as we say that, instantly popped off by Sem Spenkelink going now topped by 2/10, and I think this is kind of expected. Yet Nardcock straight up. You can see the line of the white numbers taking over the top 10 now already, all of them gone. And I'd probably feel somewhat bad for the silvers and the AMs here because of these drying conditions and because of the segregation of the qualifying into this pros go second, AMs go first. You're essentially giving all the pros the better track conditions, whereas in previous races we did have them all going out at once, but we did see the downside of that at Brands, where you have almost 50 cars going through such a short track. It really didn't allow for a good amount of space in qualifying, and sort of just ended up getting everyone upset and backing up into each other. So unfortunately, it's one of those things that you can't really win at when it comes to the qualifying and the conditions. In this case, the pros have got the long straw, so to speak. They've lucked out here, and they should, because of that, all be in the upper bracket, which, although might not be better for the silver guys, it does mean you're going to be around your competitors for the standings. And if we do actually just talk about the standings, as we hear Sam is a second up going through the chicane just now. Is he going to keep that second up? Because Kyle Banney's just gone faster. But then, yeah, okay, look at this. The times are shooting down quickly. We're now into the 57s. I wonder if we're going to see a 55 before the end of the session. Only 3 minutes 40 to go. But the time's still falling so quickly. But yes, if we just have a quick look at the point standings going into this round 3 here at the Nurburgring, we've got Nardcock leading the way, who I don't actually think is here this evening. Oh, never mind, he's just gone P1, so way to prove me wrong. He may have only just got his first lap in, but what a lap it was, right to the top of the standings. But yes, he leads the way with 95 points. Luca Filippi in second with 85. Only currently sat in 7th, but he may have not got a clean lap last time round. And then Jonas Hackler in 3rd, tied with Marcel Visa for 60 points apiece. So a lot to battle for in terms of the points and the places going on here. And just a shout out to Alex Crawford there, my teammate in the Nissan, a car that you do not see being driven anymore. Currently sat in 7th, a little bit off the fastest time, as Banny is within a 10th, but not quite able to get. But yeah, if anyone forgot what the Nissan GTR looks like, because it doesn't get any love from Kunos nowadays, there you go on screen right now. I'm sure he's going to hate me for this, but show the Nissan a bit of love. It's a lovely looking car. It's an aggressive looking car. As now we jump back on board with Sem Spenkling, 1.2 seconds up, still 2 minutes of qualifying to go, and these times just keep dropping and dropping and dropping. Look at that, he's almost a second faster than P2, which that time was literally just set as well. So Sem is on a flyer. And the worst bit for everyone else is that's his teammate who's just gone across the line, Nardcock, and now he's second, but still a little bit off that top time there. So the BMW's in the hands of these two, looking very, very strong indeed. All right, then, just a minute 20 of qualifying to go. We have the top 17 cars, all driven by pros, all out on track right now. And Filippi here is 2.2 seconds up going into the final corner. It won't quite put him on the top spot, but I think unless he's gained even more time going through the final chicane there and the final corner, yes, into 3rd, 2.5 seconds off the top. Banny once again showing up in 2nd. He seems to be just a 10th or 2 short of Sem on these times. Now Spenklink once again half a second up. It just seems like every time we go back to him, he's at least half a second up or further. And I don't know if he's going to hold this or not. We'll have to see, because it's easy with these evolving track conditions and seeing so much time coming to you just to push that little bit more. He has got a bit of traffic ahead. If this traffic's on a valid lap though, he's not technically able to go for a move, so this might just upset him. You can almost see him pushing the car ahead round, and I think he has had to back out of that. Now the question is, can he get one more run across the line? They've got 4 seconds to get across the line, these two. Side by side's not the fastest route to it, and I don't think they managed it. So Sam did improve, but not by a margin he would have liked there. So I do think that it's possible that this time around he will get knocked off that top spot. Although it won't be by his teammate Nard. He wasn't able to improve enough. Almost 3 tenths down there in P2. So far, BMW lockout is not a bad thing. Definitely not a bad thing. But I think Sam's definitely going to be a little bit disappointed in that traffic that he bumped into right at the end of his final attempt. Now on board with Van der Kraan is Mitchell, we see in the Honda up in 3rd. 4th all the way down to 8th though, still on valid laps. Still on valid laps and still with time in hand, time to improve. Will the improvements be big enough? Look at this, Leach all the way up into 2nd now. Huge lap from him. Felipe actually just then pips him and goes into 2nd. The Porsche power coming through. Now another lovely, bright, angry Lamborghini coming through. P8, where's he going to go? How high is he going to climb? Up to P3. So you can see those that got their chance to go right at the end just before the qualifying ended are the ones making the biggest jumps now. And it's a bit of I think a few different names that you don't normally see at the top there. Dan Lenson also coming through. More Lamborghinis on the track than I thought. Only P11 for him, but not a bad time indeed in the only fast track conditions. And I do believe that is the end of qualifying for everyone. So yes, we've seen an evolving track. We've seen a little bit of wet practice, and this was a full dry session, but it was a very wet track to begin with for your Pro and Am drivers. Now the question is, what are the weather conditions going to be for this race? Is it going to stay dry? Are we going to see these fast laps being shot out? It's going to be an interesting one either way, because I think there are a few cars out of position. Those that didn't quite time it to go across the line with 10 seconds, 20 seconds to go to get one last lap at those evolving track conditions might find themselves just a little bit further down the grid than they would have liked. And with that could come a little bit of over eagerness to push, you know, to attack that turn 1 that maybe you just want to be a little bit more steady, a little bit more casual. It is an 80-minute race, so there's no reason to go for that race-winning move right at the start, but you never know. You never know what they're going to do. Just had a little message in the ear from Dave saying it's raining heavy, so who knows what that's going to mean in terms of everything, because you got to pull in your brakes, your brake markers a bit more. You've got to bump up the traction and the ABS. Some might even elect to change their setup entirely if they have a wet one and a dry one. Might give a different feel to the car. Makes it a lot harder to run the curves through the Schumacher S's here, for example. And so the cars are going to be a lot harder to drive and a lot harder to go side by side, a lot slippier, a lot slidier, and it's not really what you want. I mean, some drivers obviously love it. Those that those maniacs, somewhat like myself, that do love a bit of wet driving, I guess you could say. We maybe are a little bit too crazy, but who doesn't love a good bit of wet running? Just having a look at chat. Good evening, Raggy. Welcome to the chat. I imagine you're cheering on your boy Jonas Hackler this evening. Didn't actually get a good glimpse of where he was, but maybe a little bit further down than one might have expected. There's Andy King for Pit Stop UK jumping in. Happy with his front row there. Very well done to you. But yeah, it's round 3. It's gonna be a big one, and it's gonna be interesting because of this wet conditions. Just how these drivers elect to manage, because it's an 80-minute race. Although there is no mandatory pit stop, there is going to be a need to refuel. I don't think any of these cars. Although, actually, saying that, if it rains the whole time, there may be a good chance that those that run full fuel could make it to the end without the need to pit. But you then have to factor in, what if the weather changes? What if it stays wet the whole time? What if it dries up and then goes wet again? Do you risk a pit in the mid part of the race to switch on to dry tires? And then suddenly you see it's raining 10... Well, you get a 30-minute warning, so I can't imagine people would misjudge that. But with it being 80 minutes, say in 30 minutes it dries up, I imagine everyone would start on the wets. Then in the 30 minutes, 35, 40 minutes, if it dries up by then, once the track changes to greasy, then you maybe dive into the pits, seeing if you can get an undercut, overcut, what have you. Oh, Akla P8, there you go. Just spotted it on the right-hand side. RNE Racing. Very clear car for those that are aware of the Rag Nation. I see you there, Raggy. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of tactical nuances regarding the pit strategies and what to do. My guess is, if you're not too sure, what I'd do at least in this situation, fuel it up to max and just see what happens. Play it by ear, play it on the fly, feel your way through. And it might be the best bet on a large grid like this. But yeah, it also depends on your strategy, on how you feel. Like, say if you are one of those drivers that might be a little bit displaced because of the qualifying drying track conditions, you may want to be a little bit further, a little bit more aggressive early. You may be want a little... sorry, I lost the ability to speak then. You may want to be a little bit just more reserved in your driving style. Just take it easy, let the tyres warm in. If you maybe you've got the pressure slightly wrong or something. And that's another thing, actually, when it comes to wet running, you can really struggle with getting the right tyre pressures. You do have a larger window when compared to the dry conditions, but if you misjudge that race tyre pressure when you're fully up to temperature, it can be a tough time to bring those back. And the man who unfortunately wasn't able to join because work called him, Daniel Higgins. If you'd like to jump in the booth with me, if you're feeling up for it still, you're more than welcome to. I won't say no to a bit of assistance. It is just me and my ramblings. And I apologise if I do ramble on a little. It's just sort of how things happen when it's information that just splurts out my mouth, so to speak. But now all the cars going round on their warm-up lap, hopefully putting a little bit of heat and tyre temps, getting those up, getting the temps in the brakes as well. You don't want cold brakes going into that first corner, because everyone's going to be annoyed at you if you're the guy who misjudges it and goes playing bowling, so to speak, into that first corner. And it happens to the best. It happens to everyone. We saw that a few seasons back in the F1 when it came to Hungary on that drying track. So, you know, it can happen to literally everyone. So you best hope that's not going to be you. Now, just looking at the car manufacturers as well in that top half, we've got a good little split. So we got in the top 10, I think. Oh, it's down to 13th to get all, or 15th for all manufacturers in because of the highest McLaren there. But we've got a Nissan in 13th. We've got the highest Audi in 12th. We've got the highest Aston in 10th. We've got a Ferrari in 8th. Mercedes in 7th. A Honda in 6th. Beamer 1st. Porsche 2nd. Lamborghini 3rd. We've got a great variance in terms of the car manufacturers. So all these cars will have slightly different lines, slightly different ways that they will take the corners, take the track conditions with it being wet. As we now see these cars lining up 2 abreast, getting ready to go through the final corner. It's only a matter of time now till these lights turn green and we do get racing here at the Nurburgring. Tensions will be higher than normal, I imagine, for these drivers because of the conditions. Does look to be rather wet, if just going off the images here on screen, as we are going round 3 at Nurburgring. Simsport Racing International GT3s is underway, and what a start from the Honda at the back there. Trying to go around the outside might not be the best bet. Lamborghini looking at the inside here, possibly getting second, but I think the Honda's the big winner in all this. Already up to 4th. Takes that outside line, goes to second, but there's a touch in the back, and I think there's a Porsche round. I think that might be the Porsche of Leach. May have just been clipped by Nard Cox, who's now dropping as well. He has the Mercedes of possibly Kyle Banney to deal with. A little bit of action further back, but we did have that top-down view of the first corner, and everyone seemingly got through nicely. Set for 1 at the back, you can see there, just a slow-moving vehicle. I think that's the 669. Unfortunately for them, not quite the race start that they would have liked. But as we get the cars going through the track, we will then see exactly how the drivers line up after those first race start changes. Couple of 2 wides further down going into the banked hairpin. Yeah, Kyle Banney indeed involved in one incident. We've got another incident further back. We've got a spinning McLaren. Took a whack from an Aston. And unfortunately now just has to wait at the back. Frank Hopp was one of the leading silver drivers. Now right on down to the back of the grid. Kyle Banney still 2 wide with this McLaren here of Vida. I think he might have actually finally got the move dispatched. Although he's gone a little bit wide. We got another yellow flag further back. The 306 also round just before the Schumacher S. Is an odd spot for a car to go off there. So I imagine that one was with, fortunately, a little bit of contact. Here Jonas Hackler making a few moves up to 5th, so he's gained 3 off the start, and I think Mitchell's gained a couple as well. So who are the big losers in all of that? We've seen Nard Cox drop a few as we just move to the top of the silver class here with Dooley. But Nard Cox now making a move up the inside of Jonas Hackler. He's looking to try and take the apex, but has to go a little bit slower there. And does put him on the outside of the next corner, so no move for him. The Merc behind of Richardson had to check up a little too. Lots of movement, lots of battling in conditions like this. When cars are this close, you don't want to try and put your nose too far out of place trying to make a move, because if you get that wrong, you go a little bit deeper, a little bit wide, it suddenly leaves you vulnerable to the guy behind. Abrenhoser also a little bit of a winner there. He's up 2 spots to 8th. As we move on to Dealey, who's looking alright here, the leader of silver. He's got a couple cars gap to Shelikin's behind, who has actually just been taken by Morgan. So Morgan now up to P2. As we then now hop on board with the leader of the AM class. He's got a nice little gap behind. He's got a few cars between him and second place Fredrickson. Wouter also leading the championship in the AM class, so he's looking nice and pretty at the minute, as long as he doesn't try and push too far, try and do too much. It's all about, in these conditions, once you find your rhythm, just pushing out the laps, pumping out the laps, not trying to get too eager, too aggressive, and not putting the car on the shiny stuff, so to speak. The paint can really put you off balance in conditions like this. We do have a nice battle going on for this P5. Nod Cox, after the little incident he had with the other Porsche, I can't remember the name of it now, but they've clearly dropped a little bit off the spot here, lower than 23rd. I think it looks like the Ferrari of Jonas Hackler is not going to defend this. It might be a wise move because you do get the inside if you do hang it around the out, but in fact, no, I think he was just letting the position go, and fortunately then got a little bit of a check-up as Nard was slightly slower on the apex than Hackler would have liked, and now Richardson looking like a rather interested party right behind him. Hackler going a little bit defensive, maybe taking, or just the line with the car. It's hard to judge that corner. It's one of those that I think a lot of people have very different lines going through it. Sometimes it can look like you're being defensive when that's just the line you prefer and you know how to push the car through there, but we saw Richardson go a lot wider, and I don't actually think it worked out for him because he didn't turn into the apex as expected. But he is definitely applying the pressure right now to the back of Jonas Hackler. There's another yellow flag at the back, the 73 going slowly through the second corner, and the 669 again caught in another incident. Don't know if that's self-inflicted or not, but it's on the exit of the Sector 1 complex, and I know that's an easy spot to lose it yourself in the dry, never mind wet conditions. And we also actually have a car in the pits right now, I think that's the 91. So maybe picked up a little bit too much damage, or just going for a strategy call. The problem is if they don't get out the pits soon, they're going to start being stuck in the lap cars, and then that does just become a bit painful. And that is Ike Choose, who Ike was, I think he's leader of the silver class, so I can't imagine this is anything more than some horrid luck of his getting involved in a few too many crashes. It may not look like he's damaged on the back, but it's hard to judge. I don't feel like that's a good strategy call. With an hour 13 to go, going into the pits this early and putting yourself a lap down, it doesn't feel like the right play to me. I could be very wrong. I could be proved wrong if he now just smashes the laps out till the end of the race. Because now we move over to Dealey, making his way through the pack. He's just overtaken the first of the pro drivers in front of him in Van der Kraan. Very nicely driven so far by Nick, trying to get a car or two between him and Morgan, who's right on the back of Van der Kraan now. And Nick here actually all over the back of Vida too. Whether or not he'll be able to make a move, another question, but the BMW is looking rather stuck to the ground in these wet conditions, looking very, very strong indeed. Now on to Dave Jr., the top three. We haven't had a look at these guys too much so far. Sam getting a lovely little gap out ahead. He's pulled that to almost 3 seconds over Filippi here in second. And then Dave Jr. not too far off the back of him in his Lamborghini, looking very aggressive indeed. Definitely made up a place or two early on. And Mitchell from 6th, I think, into 4th, and still hanging on to these guys ahead. Whether or not Nard, now that he's got some clear air, will be able to catch up to them is another question, but he has dropped Hackler off. I think that was 1.5 plus seconds already by the time they were just going through the chicane there. There's some good little battles everywhere you look at the moment. You've got a few people from the same classes, from different classes. Medina here just did drop down couple spots on the the standings there. I must have had an earlier mistake. The tic-tac looking very nice and clean. As we've got two wides everywhere you look right now. Wouter's got Vida, Vida's dropping down the order quite a lot, actually. We did just see him get taken by Morgan early on in the race, and now he's going way down. So whether he's doing some fuel saving for later on or he's carrying some serious damage, the car doesn't look too damaged, so I'm guessing he's just running a different map, which isn't giving him the straight line speed. There's a lot of banging. So you can see on the right hand side of the screen there, that's Denise Pope getting a nose in, trying to get a bit of action. A little bit of door rubbing with Medema there, but I think it was all fair. And actually there goes the teammate as well. Evans slips through around the outside, so the teammate's flying at the moment, but oh, it's a little bit deep from Medema, and I think we may have just witnessed a murder. That's a little unfortunate, but we'll swiftly move on from there. As yeah, you can see Vida jumping all over the place on the time sheet, and I think just behind Denise Pope, sorry, we had a few more battling, but we've also got this battle. Vilcek looking for a move on Lenson. Thought about sticking his nose up, then goes a little bit too much on the curb. Now we've got the other Merc going up the inside. Batty, and they touch, but just a little door rub right now. Side by side, the Mercedes. We've got Alex Crawford right behind, looking like a little bit of an interested party. Rani does seem to make the move on Vilcek, but whether or not it sticks is another question. Goes offensive, then switches back almost. Getting a bit too close for comfort with the Nissan there behind. But these Mercedes don't look too comfortable running the curbs at all right now. You can see every time they get a little tap, they end up just a bit slidey or so. Once again, side by side now, a little bit of side drafting going on. Will they get to continue to be side by side through the first corner or not is another question. Oh, but oh no. They did not adjust for the braking being on the kink of that first corner. The corner, for those of you unaware, does jut in a little as soon as you get to the braking point of about 100 meters. And unfortunately for these Mercedes, or the Mercedes of Kyle Banney, just going flying off the track. But now Shelikin's in a little bit of a battle with Morgan here. This, I think, has become the battle for the lead of Silvers. I don't know where our friend has dropped off to. I can't remember now. He was the BMW, not Medema, but he's fallen way off. Must have been involved in this. So now Shelikin's and Morgan battling out for the top of it. I think Shelikin's actually dropped below Van der Linden as well. You can see him just ahead in his Dutch car. So yeah, Shelikin's was ahead as we just jumped to him, but now has lost 2 places and has Van Schaik all over the back of him as well. So much action going on. And there you can see Dealey, who was the silver leader a lap ago, is now down in 28th. Oh, and a stop-go 30 for Kleiner. Someone I think may have sped into the pit lane there, unfortunately. That's one that I guess is more easily done when in these wetter conditions. Has the big boat for company, but that boat goes flying past. Probably good conditions to be driving a boat around here. As it does seem rather wet right now, but we've had a few incidents, but I think most of the drivers are able to drive through these conditions not too badly. There's a few scrapes on Van der Kran's car there. You can just see it on the side. It did look a little bit bashed up, and he now has the Merc of Kyle Banney once again trying to make his way back up. He's been involved in a few unfortunate incidences, Kyle, and Clayt, sorry, apologies, I've been getting the name all wrong. I knew it started with a K and I just tried to push my luck and guess it out right. But yeah, Clayt here. He's been involved in a few incidents, he's dropped down a couple of times, but he's still fighting on. 14th now once again for him. 8 seconds off the next pro driver, but I do believe he's got the pace. As you can see, he's just shot away from the McLaren behind already. So I think actually that McLaren might be a lapped car, because it was Morgan behind on the standings. So there's a few cars out of place now. So we just have a look in with the leader. The gap's come down slightly, but still a good 2.6, 2.7 seconds. Now Denise is going along with Vida, having a little bit of a battle. Vida just getting straight out the way there, letting Medema through as well. Didn't have a favourable line and just elected to give up the spot. We've seen Evan, actually, from what we spotted last time around, Evan now, after I believe Evan got cleared from behind as soon as they overtook Medema, but now ahead of Denise, so flying there in the Aston Martin. As I'd like to take the opportunity to welcome Daniel Higgins to the booth. Good evening. Thank you, you've just given me a chance to have a drink.
It's always the hardest thing to do, and like literally as you said you were having a drink, I also instinctively went to have a drink because I took a break in my own country, but I have the excuse quite as long as you. I haven't managed to catch much of this race, but it does look like there's cars all over the place on track today, so it looks like it's going to turn into a bit of an interesting one.
Yeah, we've had a few incidents here and there. We did have a dry qualifying, but it was from a wet practice, so it was a drying track, which has allowed for a few cars out of place, and I think that just started the battles off a little bit early before people have really got into a rhythm. So most cars you look at have a little bit of damage in some form or another, just from a few unfortunate bonks here or there.
I'm a big believer in rubbinous racing in these wet conditions. It can be hard to find grip. I can't imagine just looking at the track surface round here. You want to get really close to those curbs and nerves usually, but I can't imagine they're very drivable at the moment. Even in such a mighty car as the Mercedes, I'm seeing on the screen now.
Yeah, he's been on the back for a little bit, but then did get involved in an incident or two with Clay Banny. But the Mercedes is one car that I've spotted that definitely is more obviously being affected by the curbs. Every time we've seen it take a curb just a little bit too much, it's gone a little sideways, so they're probably having to be the most careful on them so far, or they're just the drivers that have been pushing the most, and so it's made it the most obvious.
Yeah, all these cars in the rain struggle with the curbs, which can real slippy. I mean, I know that Mercedes eat curbs like nobody's business, but it doesn't matter. The tyres spin hard cars.
Yeah, and from my knowledge, it was the Aston that was previously one of the strongest cars in the rain, but right now we have got a great variation. The top four, all different constructors. Yeah, all different car manufacturers, yeah, so that's always great to see. And second to fourth is only about a second and a half apart, so good battle going on here. Not quite enough to really go for a move, but they've definitely been pushing each other through at the minute, and I don't know if that's been helping Sam up top, but that gap stayed pretty constant after the first few laps.
I mean, you can see Sam on camera there, just up ahead. He's not run away too far yet, so it should be a good fight. And as you say, like in these raining conditions, it's easy to make a mistake. You push a little bit too much, you take a little bit too much curb. That 1 second, it doesn't have to be a big mistake. You could lose a 10th here or a 10th there just by getting a bit too much spin on the tires. So it could develop into a really good fight. But these are also very, very good drivers. I don't think we're going to see too many mistakes. He says, trying not to cast a curse anybody. But it's nice to see a Lambo running so high up as well. You don't see that very often.
No, you really don't. But just as you were chatting, I saw a yellow flag pop up in the Mercedes arena section, and I believe that may have been Jonas Hackler, the 189. So yeah, he was running a fairly decent 7th, 8th, 9th around there. He may have dropped down a little bit, just trying to wait for a rejoin position. So we'll wait to see exactly where he does end up on the standings as we sit with Dennis Verkman on the back of Patrick Tractor and P. Vida. Vida has been just dropping down and down and down from where he qualified, but Wagner's got a bit... Does manage to save it, but then the curb... Oh, it strikes a little. There is a horrible bouncer. I can tell you from experience that thing is easy to get thrown out, even in the dry. So he did well to hold it and only lose a couple places.
Yeah, those Schumacher curbs do not like the Ferrari, despite what you might think from the names. But it was impressive to kind of have one of those moments where you're like, caught it, lost it, caught it, lost it, caught it, lost it. And, you know, those moments are always scary in the car. You're holding your breath for a short moment.
Oh, that's a train.
It's a big train. And they are really close to each other. It's 17th downwards. They are very close in this wet weather. You'd think it was the race start.
Possibly, but I mean we're about 20 minutes in now. We're just about to hit the 20-minute marker. Still an hour to go, but these guys clearly all having very similar pace. I think we're looking at 14th all the way down to almost 26th. That is
quite a line.
A good 12-13 cars there.
Yeah,
and the more the guys at the front of it battle, the more bunched up they end up getting as well.
Yeah, you end up with this cork in a bottle situation with GT3s, because these cars fairly similar pace. I would imagine even more so in the wet. So it can be hard to overtake, and there's quite a few similar manufacturers in that pack. So you've got to kind of wait for a mistake. And if the guy at the front is going slower, it's pretty hard to get around, especially if you're quick, maybe through the stadium section where it can be a bit harder to overtake, or you know, maybe you're carrying more speed through the Schumacher S's. Well, great, but you're still going to have to back off because punt to pass is not enabled as far as I'm aware.
Well, and just regarding that, you can also see quite clearly now a bit of a drier line when it comes to the cars going round here. Just there's a great example. If you look just at the top right as all these cars come through, you've got the shine on either side of the line that the cars are going. I mean, through the Schumacher S's, there is only really one line, but you do not really want to get out on that dirtier stuff because it will just make you slide a little bit more, make the tyres a bit cooler, and it's not the faster way round, which is why I think a lot of these cars are finding it quite difficult to make moves on each other.
Yeah, I've just spotted a yellow flag in sector 1 for car 217. Lost a few places, but seems to be rejoined the track safely. Not quite sure who that was or how many positions they've lost, but it did look like they were off for quite a while. Yeah, no, this pack is looking really close. Should develop some good racing. Oh, because look at that. There's so many cars so close. It's just fantastic. I don't know if we're going to see any moves under the slipstream. Looks like that Honda's looking for a lookout into turn 1 of the Wild Thing cars are racing down towards turn 1. Is anyone going to be brave on the brakes? That's the question in the rain. It was a bit trickier, but it looks like we've got a couple of side-by-sides up ahead. That's very close between the teammates.
Yeah, slight check-ups as Valtteri almost went into the back of Schellekens, and then you had Denise have to check up, and then Evan have to check up, and then Medema behind her to check up, and it all got very, very close as the Audi's looking for a bit of a move around the outside, but now opening the door to Rince up the inside. Schellekens being forced wide, and I think there might have been a move just behind here with Schellekens losing a spot. He has indeed, and now it's put the others all side by side. We've got Medema shooting up the outside down towards the next braking point. Is he going to make it stick? Is Evan going to be able to hang around the outside? Oh. No, he goes in for a little bit of a tap, and Van from the front of that group now suddenly in the wall. So we have no idea as to what's happened there. As we were watching that little incident going on, and Evan still actually having the position up in front of Medema after that little exchange. He's really checked up everyone else. Look, there's not even a car's width between any of the guys behind right now.
Yeah, absolutely. This is not a section you want to be going for an overtake. Your next overtaking zone is just into this left-hander here. Is he going to go for it? Looks like it's a bit far back.
The Lexus is
looking a bit spicy at the back. It's not all over yet. You can always run wide here. That Lexus decides not to go for a move. You want to get a really good exit out here. If you're feeling particularly brave, nice long run as he hits the gravel. There you go. We're going to look for a move. It's way past. But how many more positions is he going to lose now? Because this is a long run up to this chicane. And if you're brave, you can go for a move here. You have to be brave, and the BMW behind looking a bit feisty. but it looks like everyone's being very well behaved. You really have to send it for that chicane, so having someone on your inside is incredibly off-putting.
Yeah, I think Evan got lucky that the two guys behind compromised the exit for each other coming out of that fast right-hander, and because of that, it was only the one position lost for tapping the gravel. It really does affect your straight line speed in these conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. Even in the dry, just tapping the gravel a little bit, as we're seeing some big sense into turn one, some avoiding action taken from just behind. The aerial cam showing it us all, but yeah, that is the one place on this track you do not want to be running anywhere off the track, as the tappers get a bit wobbly on the outside curbing as well. As we mentioned before, these curbs are pretty slippy in the wet, and that AstroTurf is no different.
Yeah, it was the Ferrari of Werkman going for the big lunge around the outside, and actually by using all that braking space, did manage to get the move then into the next corner. So goes up one above Fredriksson. And in all that, I think Dealey had also made the move a little bit earlier. So he was the leading AM driver. The leading silver driver. Then we had an incident off screen that dropped him right back down to 28th. Now also making his way back. Was looking quite strong in that position. So I expect to see him continuously fighting as we go further up through the positions.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see anybody not fighting when the groups are just this tight. I imagine he will be the last person we say expect him to keep fighting before this race ends. 54 minutes.
Well, even if you don't want to when they're this close, you sort of get thrown into it, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to be guessing the braking zone like lap after lap after lap. You don't know how stable these conditions are. It might be drying up, it might be letting up. You just don't know. So sometimes you can end up in a fight just almost accidentally. Someone in front of you brakes a bit earlier. You brake a bit later than you thought maybe you needed to, especially into such a heavy turn on with as hard a camber as you have into turn one. It can be a bit of an accidental fight. So I think that's what happened to Vernon, who just kind of sent it by accident.
Well, I mean, when you've got the space to go for a slightly later break just to close that gap further around the outside, I don't see it as a disadvantage, especially if the car ahead's decided to defend the inside when you're not really close enough. As it looks like the Lexus is thinking again about a move, but it's very early braking there from Vida. That almost, if Patrick Tractor was aware, I think he may have been able to have made a move around the outside on that one. That was rather interesting. Now Vida goes a little bit wide, and I think he's now going to have to give up the position to. Yes, he will. He's lost the spot to the Lexus now. Is it going to check up any of the others behind? The BMW got a little bit out of place. Ferrari now looking very aggressive, and the Porsche Fredriksson right on the back of them too. As you say, it's almost like one little incident, one little car out of spot, and you drop right into the clutch as the next guy ahead. So when you go for the move in those kind of close battles, you really got to make it stick. If not, you are at risk of losing a position to, or even a little tap and round you go, because when you throw yourself out of the line, out of the sequence, so to speak, you're really hoping the other guys around you are aware and giving you that respect and space.
Yeah, and that's the kind of section, especially in these track conditions, that you really don't want to go offline if you can help it. Obviously, there's a lot of camber into turn one, and you want to be avoiding the curbs through the rest of the stadium section in the wet, but also you're pushing yourself off the dry line. So the people behind you are arguably travelling faster. If they can get close enough into that slipstream, they'll just pick you up. There's a bit of a wobble there from the Honda. But I will say that I'm not convinced that Tractor has got the message that we're on a wet track, because I don't know how he managed to have so much grip around the outside around turn two. It just looked like his car was so planted.
Might just be Lexus things. Hard to judge.
I don't know. My experience driving the Lexus, that tail likes to get out in any condition. So the fact they managed to keep it planted is quite impressive to me, at least.
I'd say the same about the Bentley, but then people call that a boat. So, and you can see him right on the back there as we've got a little bit of too wide going on just ahead. I think the Bentley's also going up the inside, so we got the 2x2x2. This is the final one. There's a huge squeeze from Muria here, and it's got a little bit too aggressive. I think that's on the verge of unsportsmanlike conduct. Locke really had to get out of that. That, I think, is just a little bit too far, a little bit too aggressive. As we move on to Mitchell, was trying to make a move, but suddenly ends up in the gravel and dropping way back from Junior. And now that's going to put Nard Cox right on the back, and now Muris from that battle with the boat. Now I think Werkman's dropped a place or two, and this has the Honda to deal with instead.
Yeah, it's all going on as like 2x2x2x2 in these wet conditions. It's Noah's Ark at turn 1 at Nurburgring, but I'm absolutely not convinced. It's so hard to track all the action going on with this pack fighting, with the mistakes up front. We'll see if Nard Cox can get onto the back of that and fight for a 4th place. Will certainly be interesting, but I'm losing track of who was leading this pack last lap because it's just changing every single lap. Amazing.
Yeah, I thought Vida got overtaken like 4 times, and yet he's still at the front of it. Those guys that have escaped, though, as you can see, Patrick Tractor just ahead now with a massive comfort gap behind. So there is, because like once you drop out of that group, the one with Vida now leading, you get into the Van Schaik group here, which we're seeing on the left-hand side of your screen. So it's as soon as you get to leave one, you get chucked into another one. So there's really no respite.
Yeah, this is really close. And there's going to have a lot of overspeed. We did say you could send it into the chicane earlier. Looks like he's going to go for it. Just braver on the brakes, it looks like.
Oh, we've got a flying car off the track behind. I don't quite know who that was. Might have been...
just give the position up, but who lost on track?
I think they kept it going. They just happened to go very off into the gravel. But with so much action going on, we got side by side here between Morgan and Van Schaik just ahead, with Wouter actually now shoving his nose at the inside as Morgan goes very, very wide.
Looks like he's going to make that stick to the inside for turn 3. This is where you want to be a little bit of
contact. Oh, and a sliding BMW behind. Medema going for a big old drift. Now getting forced out wide.
You've got the inside line for this next left-hand turn, so Ren should be able to hold it here. If you can just keep that Aston on the outside, he will eventually have to cede the position. There you go, managed to move stick in the end. 3 gone.
Oh no! There's been a murder. Someone called the police. Oh no!
Yeah, that is just paying too much attention to the bumper.
Great driving for the whole time prior to that, and then just misjudging the braking distance. Fortunately for Wouter, he wasn't actually battling any of those guys for class, it's just for the on-track pride. And does have a decent gap still to Fredriksson behind, but that gap, well, did have a decent gap. Now it's just down to 4 seconds from about maybe 7 or 8. And in all of that as well, we did see Schellekens lose a place to Denise Pope. He was ahead looking to try and follow Morgan through, and then got blindside basically around the outside. Denise stuck the nose in, and the move was made. And that is your problem. You watch the guy ahead, you try and follow them through, and then you end up out of position, and the guy behind you says, "Oh, thank you very much." Here, as Lenson goes very deep, and now we see Vilcek trying to make the move, but got a little bit squirrely on exit, and then ended up having to be around the outside for that first part of the arena section. And now goes wide again, which might open the door for Alex Crawford behind. Just car looking a little bit unstable, this Merc.
This stadium section is a really interesting series of corners, because that turn 1, that you have so much camber on the inside that you probably want to be there most of the time if you're hot lapping. But it looks like in race conditions, it's not that bad to be round the outside. You compromise your turn 1 a little bit, but having the inside line around turn 2 and then also round turn 3 gives you 2 attempts to kind of stick your nose up and force yourself through, and that seems to be very effective. We've seen a couple of people already try and make that move. But yeah, we're seeing a bit of a wobbly Vilcek. I think Lenson went wide there, and if you had a bit more confidence in the car, perhaps you would have made that move stick. But as we mentioned before, you go for a move, you've got to be worried about the person behind you, and Crawford's just sat there looking menacing in Godzilla, waiting for his opportunity.
I mean, so far as it stands, he had a horrible time at Paul Ricard after getting involved in some unfortunate incidents right at the start of the race, and didn't make it to Brand. So looking strong for a great finish this time around. I really don't want to curse him, as he is my teammate for the endurance race, so I probably shouldn't have said anything. But
yeah, I think we're just
gonna move on. We're just gonna breathe over that one and move on. one.
Well, for the rest of it, if you see a Nissan, just pretend it's not. We're not going to talk about it. But for fear of cursing him. Yeah, Berkman looks like he's trying to get on the back of Vida again. Vida just not having the most fun race, I imagine, as people are just coming past him left, right, centre. Perhaps the rain's just not his style. Bergman with a little bit slippy on the outside curve. I'm always worried when I see a car go out wide in the wet conditions onto those terrifying curves, especially that one. I've spun around in the dry in there quite a few times, like even worse. But I think getting a run on in this section of the track is super important, but it looks like he's just too far back to make it. Yeah, but the Honda behind of Muris is looking very planted through that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know what the weather conditions are actually going forwards from this point, because you do get a 30-minute sort of bare bones broad like weather forecast. As we see Muris actually looking for a bit of a move on the Ferrari, getting a little bit of a squeeze, but the Ferrari looks like he's giving up on that. Dennis Bergman just aiming to slip back in, maybe go for a switchback. The problem with the switchback here is you end up on the wrong side of the track, so now has to go and look for another switchback, but it does actually just put him offline and has to concede that position. But yeah, going back to the point on the weather, strategy now comes into play. What have these guys fueled for? How long do they think they're going to go? Is there going to be an end to the rain in the next 20 minutes or so that we don't know about? Is that going to allow them to have to change tyres by the end of the race? I think like they could have possibly just fueled to the end of the race with it being wet conditions, because you do burn a lot less fuel per lap being in these wet conditions. At least you'd expect so. Maybe not in certain cases if people are still able to just shove their foot down, as Denise Pope goes very wide and I think just lost a couple places there. Medema and Shelikin sneaking through on that one. Still these guys go back and forth. I can't remember. I've lost count the amount of times those three in particular, with Evan behind, have switched places. They've been all over the shot. They've been in so many different configurations of those four, and yet they're still all on track in the same spot, battling away. That's just amazing to see.
Yeah, and even worse, Fritz is catching up behind them as well. So he's probably going to look to try and make up some of the places that he lost from the punt earlier. And on the right side of your screen, you've also got a fight for the top three, I think. Yeah, that's right. So Junior just leading Mitchell here, and Cox doesn't look like he's too far behind either, and they're getting closer and closer and closer. So Cox, yeah, massively closer than he was before. I mean, we saw him kind of gaining some positions or gaining some time because of mistakes from the drivers in front of him, but he's just had his head down, just grinding, making sure that they know he's there, he's in the rearview mirror, you know, wiggle your wheels, say hello, remind them you're there, and stay on top of them, because these two could start fighting at any second, and you want to be right behind them to capitalise on any mistakes.
They did have a bit of a decent gap to Nard Cox earlier on, and it was when we flicked to Mitchell through there, as we saw he had made a move, but then somehow ended up flying off into the gravel at the start of the Schumacher S's, and that's essentially what's pulled Nard right back into this fight. So I'm not sure who the car just in front of them was, but I don't believe it was Filippi. It's now once again back to the two that have been battling possibly the most out of anyone, Denise Pope and Shelikins. They clearly have identical speeds, or it's just the fact that the cars are built for different sectors. Who knows exactly, but when they're constantly this close together, you just know that there's constant battles, and they're clearly that closely matched. As we've got a back marker actually trying to get out the way on the right hand side here, might have just held up Junior a little to allow for the Honda behind to get a slightly better run, but unfortunately not quite happening there at the back. And as we see just on this left hand side, I believe that was Medema getting a bit close with Morgan. Oh, and Evan goes a little bit wide. That might just open the door for Patrick Tractor to slip through. They go side by side here, but I don't know if that move's going to stick. Oh, it's very, very close, and Wouters looking very interested now as a third party, and unfortunately that is, I think, a partial death of that long-standing group.
Yeah, it looks like they're starting to split apart now, and people are just starting to make mistakes and descend into their own battles, but these three look like they're about to settle for a big fight. As I said before, it looks like Wouter was catching constantly this group. Looks like he's got maybe a little bit more space, and he's closing down. But the Saffison tractor, they're going to go at it again, I'm sure, into turn 1. Is Faust going to be able to make a place up here if they start to fight?
Just spotted something interesting there. Dealey had to, I don't know if it was through. He went to the inside of the start-finish straight and went into the wetter section of the track. Might be struggling with some overheating tyres, whether that's from overpressuring them on race start or not, but that is something that does come into play with a drying line like we do have. The tyres do heat up a little bit more than if you were running early on in the race with a less clear racing line, and because of that your tyres can heat up more and more. So I think he's looking for a few puddles here and there just to try and cool his tyres down a little bit. Maybe the rain's dissipated ever so slightly, which as well will reduce the amount of water that you're removing and that you're running through. So yeah, there could be a few tyre issues from Dealey. He did get involved in a little bit of an incident earlier on, as he was for a good portion of the first 20 minutes leading the silver class. Just hasn't quite been able to start making his way back through maybe as quickly as he liked, but if you look at the time still on the left, there is not much in it. There's this group that was, half a second between most of them is now at most like a second and a half still between most of them. So even though it looks like it's calmed down just visually, they're still so close together. Any mistake and you still fall back into the clutches of another guy.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like a distance, but it really is just one mistake. And we've seen it time and time again. The mistake doesn't have to be severe. You don't have to spin the car. You don't have to get hit. You just have to get a little bit too much on the wet, or maybe you have an issue with your tyres, we were talking about earlier, and you drop your pace for a couple of laps. You're falling straight back in, and it looks like the BMW here of Medima's looking for a move on Morgan, but can't make it stick. Can he get the switch back? So he's got a bit of a better exit, but can he make it work? He's going to stick his nose up the inside. Oh, has to back out at the last minute. That was a bit of a vortex of death that he was going to head into as we switch over to Friedrichsen, who's trying to catch up the boat, but we all know boats are much superior on water than Porsches. So it's going to be a difficult one to catch for sure.
I think this is what you're looking at here is probably the biggest and the smallest cars in ACC going side by side with each other. The boat did just get a little bit out of line, ended up catching a bit too much of the paint and curbs on the outside of that arena midsection, and it did just allow Fredriksson to sneak on through and build a quick, substantial gap to the back. So now the aim for Fredriksson there is to try and get to the back of Vida, who Vida is not, unfortunately, I must just be, in my eyes, by the looks of it, different engine map, because his car doesn't seem to have the straight line speed. Not that it's like, the car doesn't seem overly damaged. We've got a backwards car there. That hasn't involved any of the race leaders as far as I'm aware. I can't see, wait a second, where has Junior gone? He's dropped down to 22nd.
How is that?
I wonder if he's pitted.
Pit?
I imagine that's a pit, because that wasn't a Lamborghini we saw backwards there. That was that was a BMW of some sorts.
Yeah, that definitely.
So yeah, there's a bit of strategy there from Junior. Clearly didn't fuel the whole way. Confident enough, I guess, that the weather conditions are staying wet for the whole race, as we've got a couple checkups here, and here Dave Junior now goes up the inside. This might have just been the perfect time for him to get those two Lexuses ahead. Lexi, I have no idea how you'd say a multiple, but I think he's just managed to get two into one almost there.
Just
shy of grunting. Yeah, the Lexus has a bit more grunt in a straight line, but he does have the inside of the corner, so if he can just force the Lexus out wide. Oh, we've got Shelikans backwards, and that is something to do with Evan Atafas and Denise Vogt. Once again, the Wild Things Racing getting involved in a few incidences here. They've not had the cleanest of races, I must say. It seems like every time we jump on to Evan, there is a car nearby having a little bit of a hiccup here or there. But yeah, unfortunately for Dave, if he was thinking he could have a good chance at getting an undercut on these guys. He is dropped into possibly the worst spot for it, as he is now in the middle of this massive pack.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to bring that point up, that if you're going to pit and you want to, as we see, Vader's actually got a drive-through as well somehow. So I wonder if that's track limits. But yeah, if you're going to go into the pits and maybe you want to get an undercut, maybe.
Oh, he's going for the inside, but he's been squeezed. I don't know if that's car getting a bit pushed out. They're side by side here through the hairpin. And that looked very much like it was going to be a car backwards to me, but somehow they both make it through.
Junior's driving very aggressively with the speed that he's found from somewhere. Maybe he was struggling with tyres. Maybe that's why he pitted. He was saying, my tyres aren't good enough, or they're overpressured. We mentioned before that the pressure in the tyres can change drastically depending on the track conditions, especially in the wet. The tyre pressures are a huge thing in this. If you get your tyre pressures wrong, you can lose like half a second on the laps. It looks like Junior's actually caught some of the ground potentially there.
Yeah, didn't quite get the exit he's after, but not the play to go around the outside there. So now Evan's going to have to be looking a little bit questionable. Does manage to get the others behind, but there's going to be two wide side by side through the chicane. I think the move may have been stuck round the outside. I'm not sure who exactly that was. Looks like a Porsche, but it might be the Porsche Fredrickson. And what's that? No, that's the BMW. And can't tell if that's a lap down. No, that's Dealey. Dealey's getting back into the mix now. He's right on the back of Muris. I think he may be. Not sure which way those two were back and forth, but Dealey was further back, so I'm guessing he's now been able to catch up to this group. The car not looking too pretty on the front, which might be from the incident he had early on. Just a little bit lifting bonnet there, so carrying a little bit of damage, but right back into this mid-pack group now for the silver class, as Denise has managed to catch up to the back of Morgan. Once she finally managed to get a bit of air from that group pestering her behind, once Shelican seemed to disappear.
You say that there's air, I say that there's a junior running straight out of them. Junior has a lot of pace and has been quite happy to be aggressive with these people. But clearly he's like, I've got the pace and I'm coming through. And then you can see, look at just how much more speed Junior is carrying into that corner. It is not going to be long until Pope has Junior pressuring her, and she's still going to get on the back of Morgan. So you've got one car in front of you that you're chasing down, another one looming large in your rear view mirror. Do you let them through to hopefully slow them down, or do you fight for position? Because how long are you going to hold them off?
I feel like we may have just seen Denise giving up the inside line to allow Dave Jr. to go through, which in my opinion is probably the smartest decision to do, because then you let the faster guy attack the other ahead. Oh, actually no, she didn't. So in my opinion here, you let Dave through and then you try follow him through. Just use Dave to upset the car ahead, because you know he's a faster man. He was ahead of you and he's pitted now and he's right on the back of you. So there's not really much point defending. So once they make the move, let him go for it and then just try follow him through the car ahead, because they're going to... The car ahead is probably going to be more aware of your intentions trying to follow through, so will be more aggressive in its defense, and that actually should end up putting them more out of place when Dave eventually gets through.
Yeah, you can see David looking really sendy in every corner. I think that's why it looked like Denise was giving up the inside line earlier. I don't think it was. I think she just didn't expect him to send it, just called his bluff and went, no, you're not going to do that. The tactic here, of course, is letting the car through that's faster to slow down your opponent in front is a good tactic. And as you say, I don't think you're going to be fighting Junior for very long anyway. But the question is, where do you let them through? Because you need to minimize the time that you lose letting them through while maximizing the damage that they can do to the car in front. And that's where the strategy element of, like, how do you let them through? This is a good place to do it if you're going to do it. You can stay wide on the outside, maybe lift, but it doesn't look like Denise is going to. Denise is just saying, I'm just going to keep driving my race. You want to come past? I'm going to be predictable. Come past. Which is, if you were a back marker, that would absolutely be the way to do it. But you might be positioned here.
Yeah, and the problem regarding that is if you look right behind Dave, that's Evan, who is now catching back up to this group again. So we were thinking, oh, Denise has finally got out of it and is now, you know, 2.5 seconds ahead of that scrapping group behind. Now being held up by Morgan, the other guys behind are suddenly catching back up once again, and the group's going to re-emerge once more, and then all the shenanigans from that we've seen previously are probably going to begin once again. But yeah, it just seems like Dave is struggling badly at getting past this vehicle. He's going to go for the dive into the chicane. Denise smartly does not put up too much of a defence. Now the question is, can she hang on to the back? Because it looks like it just dropped off a little bit further than she'd like.
Yeah,
which may give Morgan the better chance just to let Dave through and then get right back to doing what he was doing so well before.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Dave broke up really well. He took a super wide line into the right-hander at the top of the hill after the shimmer.
Yeah, there we go. Look at that.
The widest running club.
Oh, but Denise is going for it!
Going for a look! And I think that Aston's still going out wide. It's not over yet. Denise, if she can get enough grip, but it doesn't look like it, just going to go back to business as usual, and Dave's going to go, right, thank you very much. That was laps. Let me get on. Yeah, it's 30 minutes left in this race, but as you said before, you know, these leaders don't have to pit. And if they do pit, they might not come out in such an awful position. Dave would have lost a lot of time dealing with this big fight. So we're going to see. They're just to spend start finish straight now, so we see how this fight unfolds, because this might be the closest that they've been, at least what I've been considering.
Yeah, since the start of the race, Sam's had about a 2.5 to 3 second gap on everyone else, but it looks like Luke is finally just reeling them in, slowly but surely. The gap as they crossed the line was 1.8 seconds. So that has come down, and it does look like the Porsche's now just being a little bit, just looking that little bit stronger going through. The BMW not quite got the quantities it had early on. Maybe the tyres just going away from it a bit.
Yeah, and of course it kind of comes into play whenever you're talking about a Porsche in the fight. Is we talked earlier about how setup can affect you sector by sector, but in the Porsche, setup can affect you fuel load by fuel load. So there's a high chance that that setup is just looking really fine as the fuel runs lower and lower and lower. Maybe Luke was struggling a bit more on a high fuel load with the fuel tank in such an awkward place in that car.
That's true. It does very much depend how you've set up the car, because you can set it up for light fuel load, which means it'll be a lot more understeery on the heavy fuel, but then the car comes to you as that fuel burns off. Or you can go the other way. You can set it up for the heavy fuel, so you're stronger earlier. You can drive the car better earlier, but once that fuel burns, then the car's a lot twitchier and a lot lighter, which I think is the thing you don't want in these sort of conditions, because when it's already gets twitchy in dry, just from the fuel going, in a wet condition where you would have that naturally added, it makes it twice as bad.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Porsche is a car that you want to drive like you stole it anyway, so I think most Porsche drivers will try to set the car a little bit of oversteer, but as you say, in the wet conditions, as the fuel load is changing, the last thing you want is a snappy car.
It looks like we've got a yellow flag in the arena section. Can't tell quite who that is. It looked like 64. Might have been number 65? No, he's already in the pits.
It looked like it was Haig.
So, yeah, it was Haig. But for a while. I'm not sure if that's just having to wait for the rest of the guys ahead to get out, but there's a few names that now look very out of place when you look down the list here. You can see you guys as Wilkes, yeah, in the same spot, that arena section, catching out a lot of drivers, taking a while to move quite far down the order from where you expect the pros to be. Same with Veneer, and Vida has pitted, you can tell, because he was running in that group in around the 18 to 26 mark, now dropped all the way down to P33.
Yeah.
Whether or not we see some more pits as it goes on, or whether these guys just say, right, we can make it to the end now, is another question.
I think that would absolutely be closing down going to the top, but it looks like both of those incidents were in the same place as we took turn 2. Be surprised. Too wide onto that asterisk over there, so not stop the car and pull it up into the measurement as it goes to slip. That is the worst of the lot.
That's slipping it right.
Absolutely.
It's literally slipping it right.
So you don't want to be going equally, you want to try and use it if you can, if your car's right for it, or you think the conditions aren't so good. You're getting as wide as you can, but use a little bit too much, and yeah, it's either going to spin or just refuse to stop.
And look who we're watching once again, stuck in the centre of the battles. Denise Pope with Muris all over the back. Muris already unseen to us, but has managed to take Evan in a previous lap. Still Patrick Tractor and Dealey just following behind. And Morgan leading this group. I can't quite tell what the gap was to Dave now ahead, but he's clearly, I think he's 4 seconds now between Dave and Morgan. That was maybe a lap and a half ago that we saw the overtake happen. So that is great speed. Maybe 2 laps, but yeah, Dave already back onto the back, catching the back of Medina. Once he dispatches him, then it's on to Van Schaik, and then finally he's managed to get through all the silver classes. But if those guys that he was battling with, the other pro drivers, have elected just to go along and not pit, he's really put himself out of place there, which is unfortunate for him. But you never know. 25 minutes to go. They might, if the track slowly starts to dry up, that fuel consumption goes a bit higher and higher, and then it might force a few to have a little bit of a quick fire fueler, which by the end of the race, if your tyres, it could save the tyres actually, just thinking about it. If your tyres are starting to overheat, you go into the pits for 10 seconds, that'll help cool them down, which then may just give you that buffer you need to push the final 5 or 10 laps. We quickly hop on board with a battered and bruised BMW of Samantha Pierce. Not looking too pretty. Got Raynal all over the back, and there's a little bit of contact just going into the chicane. All of them managed to make it through. All these guys battling for position here, and we've got one of them off. I think that might be Ike, who's just gone spinning off into the background.
I think it was
one of the Mercs. A little bit of a tap on the rear, and off they go.
Oh, no,
very unfortunate.
Yeah, no, I think that they got a bit confused there. They were in Germany, but clearly I thought they were in America because that was some NASCAR driving. Plenty of drafting.
Sam went a little bit shy on the corner, and yeah, has basically given up the position to Raynal there. Just didn't use the track, pulled up a little bit too short in that first corner braking zone. But going back to Ike, the poor guy's not had a good race, I believe. Let me just double check this. Yes, he was tied first with Adam Locke for the silver class, and they only find themselves at the bottom of the silver class. So a little bit of a race to forget, but I'm glad to see him still pushing through. I don't actually think we see Locke. Oh, they're Locke in 29th, so not a great day for the leading silver drivers currently.
No, that Boatley not thriving in the rain as much as you'd hope. In fact, we're seeing Van Schaik lead the silver class. Now, I was going to point out earlier that the interesting thing about the fight that was between Denise Pope, who seems to drop back quite a few places somehow, and it was for P3 in the silver class. So that big pack was fighting for a podium in class, which made it all the more interesting. I do wonder what happened to Denise Pope watching the Porsche of Friedrichs and Weidel just kind of cruising around in their own space. That's not something we've been seeing on this track much today.
No, they've been at the bottom, like the back end of that massive group, and just sort of chilling their way through it. Not trying too hard. We've got we look at the gap now between first and second, getting much closer indeed. As I think we just had a yellow flag and maybe a couple of sessions or something. Now these guys having to get right through Sam. We got another yellow flag in the first corner, though that first section's really been the incident section, hasn't it? There's just yellow flags constantly emerging from there. Yeah. But yeah, now these guys first and second getting through a lot of back markers, which looks like it helped out Sam a little bit on that one, but then going here into the braking zone, just look how much Luca closes that gap.
This is the tricky section. You want to be using. It's tricky to drop. Knowing when to pick up the throttle for turn 2, knowing when to brake, that is a big off. I think.
Oh, Morgan! Oh no! So we've seen Denise. Well, we didn't see Denise, but on the timesheet we saw a drop. Now Morgan's gone from the back of the group.
Yeah,
I think he's got a little bit more than hopefully liked. There's been a lot of that in the silver class. So we've had drivers. That silver class first has changed hands so many times, and now there's just like half a second between Van Schaik and Redeemer as well in that one. Yeah, so we've, as you can see, as if on command, both classes show up for the battles for the lead. 20 minutes to go. So much riding on these. And you've got, I think it's a back marker in the way as well of that orange McLaren. Does very, very nice job there getting out the way, letting these two fight cleanly. But yeah, like I say, there's been so many incidences in that silver battle. I wouldn't want to be the stewards going to the end of this one. Personally, yeah. I think there's going to be a lot of incident reports regarding that silver class, just because of. I think more often than not, you don't. Even though there's some incidences, you normally don't think a lot of people don't bother reporting too much, because when it comes to it, an incident doesn't really cost them that much. But they've just been so close together from start to finish, these silver drivers, that any incident, you've seen them drop way, way down the list. I mean, Morgan was at the top of the group. He was 15th, and then now he's down in 18th. He still managed to stay ahead of Patrick Tractor. I don't know if Tractor pitted or was involved in an incident as well, because he was in that group. Dealey's now back up into 4th, just off the back of Muris, fighting for a podium again in the silver class after being involved in an incident early on and dropping from 1st all the way down to the bottom of it. So there's 2 cars backwards just for good measure. That Jesus, the leaders had to take evasive action there. Who knows who they were, but look at that. It's put Luca right on the back of him.
Yeah, this is about to get really spicy. I mean, we were talking before, like one mistake in the rain, you lose so many places when you're fighting so close, because you end up off the line, or as you say, the cars are just so close that it's difficult to give up just one position. It tends to be a few. We've seen that with Pope, we've seen that with Morgan now, all the way down. It just takes one mistake. Cars this close, you're going from, fighting for a podium in class to, oh, where has my class gone?
Yeah, there's been a lot more of a spread in the pro lineup. They've seemingly been a lot more reserved, or just the variance in speeds in the pro class has been just a little bit greater. We've also seen more of the guys in pro, I think, pit out of compared to most others, because we've just dropped Abranosa from that sort of 6th place. I think he may have even been 5th. Now running 14th, 18 minutes to go. You've got to think that those guys that didn't want to, well, if you were going to pit realistically, you might have just gone for it in the mid stint, as we've got a sliding Audi, and that's actually forced Sven to go around the outside. Oh, it's getting very, very tight now. Sam took evasive action because he saw the Audi very sideways, forced him onto the grass, and Luca, with the fastest lap now in hand as well, trying to get close and close, but just look how the BMW pulls away on the straights, and that is just the problem with the Porsche, isn't it? It's just not fast enough in a straight line.
Yeah, it's beautiful on a hot lap, but then you get into a race and go, why am I driving a GT4 car? So I think these back markers are definitely making things a bit spicy for these leaders this lap. I think that maybe we've seen Luca close the gap a bit more than maybe Sem would like, because Sem's just been dodging cars.
We've got a car behind us. Yeah.
And yeah, saying that, look, in Sector 1, there's yet another incident. Sector 1 is being absolutely lethal today, especially combined with the damage we've seen in cars and the rain. I think it's so easy to just make a mistake. I mean, we're even seeing the leaders sliding about all over the place. Look at the back of that BMW. That might be the optimal grip line, but it looks terrifying.
Yeah, well, they've got a little bit of air now in front before they catch the back of Denise Pope, who is still only 2 seconds off Patrick Tractor, who's then a 10th off Dennis Verkman, who's only then a second. So basically, I think Sem's going to have maybe 2-3 laps of a bit of clarity and just being able to find the rhythm back before he then gets stuck in the thick of the biggest group that's been fighting from start to finish. And unfortunately for him, he's got Luca all over the back of him, which is probably... I actually don't know how that's going to go, because you can think in one sense that Luca's going to have a great chance at closing the gap, but then he's also going to have to deal with the same cars in the way as Sem is, and they might take away some of the overtaking opportunities that arise if, say, Sem has to be pushed wide, but then the car that pushed him wide is then blocking the racing line, so Luca then can't get past.
Yeah, it swings and roundabouts.
Strategy again, yeah.
It swings and roundabouts. Sometimes you win with back markers, sometimes you lose, and it's just part of the game. I think that it will open up overtaking opportunities potentially, and it will close them down potentially. And the thing is, as that driver following, you've just got to be really alert and aware. I think Sem might have set the fastest lap of the race while we were not looking, because Philippi does not have that pink tick next to his name anymore. So I think, yeah, I'm told that Sem went 2/10 quicker. So Sem trying to run away from the start, now that he's got that clean air that we talked about before he runs into these packs, giving himself a buffer to get rid of that advantage that we were talking about, where the car behind can look for those opportunities when you're passing back markers.
Yeah, but the problem is they're going to get to the group, which... Oh, I don't know if they quite reach the front of that group. I mean, I think Van Schaik and Medema are just a little bit further ahead, but you've got those guys that are battling for the front of their class that we did just have on screen a moment ago. So they're not going to be wanting to let anyone behind past, really, because they're going to be so focused on the battle between each other, it's hard to fully get to grips with the blue flags that will be coming their way if they do get caught by the race leaders.
Yeah,
as now
you've got blue flags, you've got race leaders behind you, and there's like 10 minutes left of the race, or less potentially. You do not want to be giving up a mistake in these late stages.
And those race leader battles, class battles, and the race lead battles are not the only things going on. As you've seen, we've got Fredriksson having to come into the pits. Oh, that might open a chance for Wouter to have a lead now in the AM class. Clearly not enough fuel for Fredriksson to get to the end. But it's those kind of things, as well as we actually see Filippi coming in. So yeah, also doesn't have enough fuel. He's going to go for a quick little splash and dash for about 10 to 12 more minutes worth of fuel. I can't imagine they will take tyres, but then it depends how the pits are set up. I'm not sure if there's a minimum pit time of 30 seconds or not, because previous races there is.
Yeah, I feel like this is one of the... We talk about the strengths of the Porsche over and over again, where it's cornering speed, its handling, but one of its weaknesses is that it has a tiny fuel tank. And maybe that's just happened to come into play this race, and Sam's able to go long in the BMW, which does not have that issue. But the question, of course, is where is Filippi going to come out, and are they going to be able to make places up against the people around him?
So that's the big question, isn't it? I don't know if the gap was that large, because I don't believe Nard... Well, it's hard to judge if Nard had pitted or not. So I think we just got to wait for the end of Sector 1, where maybe we'll see the standings improve. But Richardson was 25 seconds back prior to the pit. So yeah, Nard now into second, and I think Filippi keeping third. So only lost one position with the need to pit. But he's just got to have his fingers crossed that the two ahead also need to pit, because if they don't, then unfortunately for him, as you say, the small fuel tank has been what's cost him a chance at the race win.
Yeah, it's one of those unfortunate ones where, we know that the Porsche is quick around here. I think it might even be in the hands of an alien the fastest car around the Nurburgring. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, overall in race, there's so many factors that play up in it. If it has been the fuel that's letting down, Philippi's lost another place by the looks of things to Richardson. So I wonder what's happened there on the timing tables. Maybe the timing tables didn't update.
Yeah, so I think that just hadn't updated. Then it's the one major downside I think of Assetto Corsa Competizione is the standings take a little bit, as from a viewer's perspective, to fully show us what's being seen. So yeah, that was just again I think during the pit. So whether or not Filippi can now overtake Richardson. Because that's a whole other dynamic now. It's not just, you know, hoping the two guys ahead pit. He's now got an actual another car in front of him that he's going to have to deal with if he wants to try and move his way just onto the podium spots.
Yeah, there's only 2 seconds that gap. So we've seen Filippi putting some absolute rapid laps this session. Yeah, it's that time of day. Qualifying laps to the end. Let's go. Put your foot down. Because otherwise, you're not going to catch Richardson. So Filippi's probably going to have to drive on the edge if he wants that podium, and his car is looking rather beautiful black paint scheme.
Oh, and we seem to have missed it, but in the silver class, Medema did indeed take Van Schaik, and Nelson also overtook the two of them while that whole thing was going on. So I don't know if that will seemingly look like the end of the battle for silver guys, because there is now a pretty decent gap as Medema's just holding onto the back of Nelson as they slowly pull away from Van Schaik. Van Schaik also does have a 10-second gap to Dealey behind, who also now seems to have a 7-second gap to Schellekens behind, so I don't know what's happened there, but Schellekens was turned around a while back. Muris has now dropped. Denise Pope's gone down, so yeah, Schellekens now suddenly finds himself back into 4th in the class after dropping down to about 7th or 8th, so honestly, I have no idea what's happening in silver class, but yes.
I honestly, you just told me those gaps in silver class. After this race, I'm not trying to believe you. The timing board, clearly not the truth. I've never seen a gap in silver in my life.
Well, unfortunately, yeah, the battle has finally come to pass. But as we now move on to a battle that has appeared before our eyes, the AM class drivers going at it following the pit stop from Fredriksson, all over the back of Wouter now. Actually, no, not Wouter, that is a back marker ahead. Wouter, you could just see ahead of that going off screen, so not quite as close as we thought, but still closing the gap, I believe, is Fredriksson onto Wouter. So with 8 minutes 50 seconds to go, that could well... Oh no! No, yes, don't look back, Oh, I thought we timed that perfectly to save him some face, but... Fredriksson, I think, may just lost his chance at the AM class victory. As Richardson has to pit. Yeah. So I thought he'd already pitted, so unless he's had to pit a second time. Yeah, so actually, yeah, has only pitted the once, so just that is the difference in speed that the top three have had over everyone else, which is... Wow, that's a bit of a gap if they pulled out 25-30 seconds. To 4th and downwards minimum.
Junior is just not strategy. It's just getting stuck in that traffic. He's now down in 10th place. It's just probably had a very frustrating few laps stuck in that massive fight. But I'm sure it was fun. But I would have much rather been nice and high up. And it's like some of the other drivers make up quite a few places. We see Heckler's all the way up to 4th position.
He dropped down, yeah, after he was in 7th, then had an incident, then dropped way down to like 12th, and has now worked his way back as well. So I think it looks like for those that were able to, running just no pit has been a major benefactor.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to just quickly talk about Crawford, because I had a conversation with him. One of the things that he did say to me about the Nissan was, it's not a very strong car, but it does have a massive fuel tank, and it seems to work in this race. Just sit in position, wait for the pit line, because I don't think he's been in the pits yet, and I'm praying that now he's not going to crash. But he's all the way up into 7th position, so he's done really well for himself this race. Just on the strategy of having a bigger fuel tank than Porsches.
We've just seen a Ferrari dancing over the gravel there through the sugar presses. So we do get on board with Alex Crawford for a little bit. I hope it's not too much because, as you say, I really don't want to take a curse him. But he is the lone Nissan, so no matter how this race ends, he is always going to be the best in the car. It's interesting with that viewpoint. There's quite a big puddle that's formed on the outside of turn 1, so you really don't want to go deep. Because if you do, you get caught in that puddle, and that might have been cause for a few of the incidences in the turn 1. We did see Fredrickson spin it, just getting a bit too eager on the power on the inside of turn 1 as well, so you've got all these different elements of the track that you can spot. And I think Dave is trying to make us squirm here by just keeping us viewing the...
Well, we're going to talk about something else a little bit more.
Got a yellow flag in turn 1.
There you go. And it's delivered, which is why we're not all talking about what's on the screen. Thank you.
Oh, and it's Shellikins again. Of course it is. Why wouldn't it be? He's always moving around, so I'm guessing that means he's probably lost a position. Has he dropped all the way to... No, he couldn't have dropped all the way to Planas. He's lost one spot to Muris, I believe, but there's... Denise Pope behind. You spotted the Wild Things Racing livery just appearing around the end of Sector 1, so unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, just one position lost. So we now get a shot of Steve Parker getting overtaken by Vernier. Vernier not having a good race here, down in 30th as the pro driver is not really where you expect to see these guys, but it can unfortunately happen. But I think a much better race from Steve Parker there, because normally we see him going very sideways, and so far the little we've seen of him, he's not. He's been actually going in a straight line, so
yeah,
very well for him.
We've not had Tokyo Drift in the rain, so the one time we expect the one time we've seen many in the past. Steve Parker has decided that today is the day he's going to show off. And it just looks like he's driven really...
Oh, and now Medema's gone deep. He's gone off in the final corner, and I think he may have just lost the lead. I think that's Dealey now right next to him. Oh no, that's Sam's car, I can tell. But no, he's lost to Van Schaik, so it's Van Schaik just ahead. So after seemingly getting the gap, he pulled the gap to about 4 seconds or something over Van Schaik, now has to do it all over again, and this time around there's only 3 minutes and 20 seconds. So clearly someone thought, you know what, we need a bit more action here.
Yeah, what we've not seen all day is these silver drivers fight at all, so I'm really glad we're getting to see it right now. Yeah, absolutely. Got a bit of entertainment towards the end. Absolutely delivering are these two drivers on Shake and Medema. So we're going to see if he closes him down or not. As you say, he pulled a 4-second gap, so he's clearly got the pace in him. But has he roasted his tyres on that spin? Is the question. Can he still find the pace? And if he can find the pace, it's one thing to catch, it's another entirely to pass.
Yeah, and this time around I don't... Oh gosh, that was a bit close. I clenched a little there. That just looked like attempted murder, but fortunately did avoid the car ahead, did make sure just to straight line it and not still try and attempt to take the fastest line.
Yeah, that was the moment.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy.
I'm really glad I was wearing my brown pants. That was scary. That was really scary. Massive send, which we love to see, but perhaps, you know, when you go for the big sends, be a little bit closer. I don't quite know what happened. Maybe just getting a bit over eager over the back of Van Schaik. When you make a mistake like that, you want to make up for it as soon as you can, and that can lead to you just making more mistakes because you're a bit overeager. You still need to drive smooth. You still need to brake at the same points. You know, you can't suddenly find half a second out of nowhere. You need to drive your own pace. But he doesn't look like he's struggling for pace, as I say that, as he tries to go around the outside and onto the wet line. Is he going to get a better run down into turn 1? He's going to have the slipstream. It doesn't look like he's necessarily got a better run, and we know that Audi is very, very quick in the straight line. We were commenting before about how the BMW was leaving the Porsche behind, but most cars will leave the Porsche behind. The Audi's acceleration, especially out of corners, is truly insane. One of the quicker cars in the back, and it looks like Medima's really struggling to get onto the back of it.
The BMW is not exactly the fastest in a straight line either, so it's just the Porsche being that much worse. But I've just seen the leader has crossed the line now, which means we are going to get this lap as your final lap. There's not going to be time for one more. So everyone behind the leader there, I don't think you're going to have a chance for any other laps. So we might see, we probably will see Van Schaik and Medema go down to the last lap and a bit, but everyone else behind will be finishing here. So they've got to make these moves now, essentially, if you're behind the leader.
Yeah, and it is for pole in position, so I expect to see a little bit of aggression coming out of those two. You see Sem just cruising around.
Oh, and it looks like
side by side there.
Yeah, and
yeah, it looks like the move's been made.
Just a little bit too squirrely on exit from the Audi, and Medema's right back through again. But we've seen he's eager for it. Well, not eager for it, but he is prone to a mistake. We've seen a few. We've seen has he just killed him?
Okay. Been bonked, but it's put Nard Cox in the competition as well. So on the final lap, we're seeing the fight for pole position
between teammates.
That's through the Schumacher S's, through the teammates. It's not over until the flag is waved. I don't think Nard's going to be going, do you know what, I'll go easy. If I was Nard, I'd be looking for that position, looking for that mistake. So, yeah, it looks Sem's had an incident with a back marker. It happens from time to time. And Nard, maybe he's going to look for it. He's still quite far back. So as long as Sem can hold his line and keep his positioning, it should be fine. Doesn't look like Nard's got to run into this final chicane. So without any mistakes, Sem should be okay. Is he going to be fine through the chicane?
Is there team orders? They might just call team orders.
I doubt there's team orders here. That does not look like a team orders move. Look how close they are behind each other.
No, he's going for this. Nard is going for this.
It looks like he's trying to pull out, but I don't think the line's not far enough away to have a proper run here. So I do think it'll be Sem. The line's closing in rapidly, but that is close between the leaders of the Pro Class over the line.
And Sem takes it by just a few tenths, if that. From his teammate who did start in third, dropped all the way down to like 8th after getting in an incident with another Porsche, but managed to fight all the way back up to second because he didn't need to pit, and those few that did need to pit, unfortunately, have dropped a little bit down. Junior has managed so far to fight his way back to 9th. Philippi could have had the win himself, but the Porsche just doesn't have the fuel tank for it. Hackler coming back for a strong P4 after getting caught in an incident early on in the race and dropping down. This race, if you could break it down into overtakes, you'd see like probably 100 plus just out of the whole thing. Clayt Banny coming through in 5th. Alex Crawford, our teammate, an outstanding 6th place there in the Nissan. Regan Mitchell right on his tail though, coming through in 7th. 8th for Richardson. Junior, Lenson and Vilcek now coming through. Vilcek here on screen. I think he's got the actually just lost 3 spaces, so yeah, he's just dropped down a bit. He's now got Medema behind him. Where has Van Schaik gone? Van Schaik's dropped way off. Has Van Schaik got a fuel save for the end here? He's now 5 seconds back. He looked like he was going very slowly, but look at this train. These 4 guys going right across the line. I think we've got a slow Aston. Oh, Nelson just about keeps the spot. Medema 12th, Vilcek 13th. Van Schaik going so slowly. I think he's run out of fuel. Oh, he's lost second place to Dealey.
He's not even going to make it over the line. The line's just ahead.
He's made the line. He has made the line. Shelikin's now in 16th, the final car. One of the final cars to finish. And that is your round 3 of Nurbs. Wow.
What a race. What a race. Yeah, I couldn't have asked for any more action in the silver class in particular. Neck and neck right to the end, and then we're seeing a fuel saving strat in the very last lap, clearly just slightly miscalculated. You couldn't have asked for any more action.
Well, I guess that explained why the gap grew so quickly in that silver class, but to lose second. I mean, Dealey's got to be feeling great. He was front of that group for so long, looking very strong, had a gap of about 4 seconds to the guys behind. Something happened, dropped all the way back down to almost the bottom of that silver class, and then managed to work his way back up to second in the end.
Yeah, sometimes consistent driving is all you need, especially when there's so much chaos going on. You can keep your head down, you can drive consistently, you can make great comeback performances, and I think that's what we've seen from him today.
My headset's just died, so now I can't hear any of you guys. Just give me a second.
Okay, I'm going to try and talk and hope that Patrick doesn't decide to talk at the same time. Hopefully you can see the little green dot on our Discord notification. But yeah, I unfortunately joined a little bit late. Hopefully we're going to have some interviews soon once Patrick fixes his headset. It looks like we're going to have some interviews with the race leader and his teammate who've moved into the interview room. And also, we forgot to mention that Wouter did manage to lead the AM class over the line towards the end from just behind us. I think I'm joined by Nard, Cox, Sem, and Wouter Vrins. So congratulations on your race win, Sem.
Thank you very much.
You cut that one a bit close towards the end.
Yeah, I made some silly mistakes, so the gap diminished, but also the back markers were quite feisty at times, so we had to wrestle through them, but in the end I knew that the Porsche was going to be tight on fuel to last the entire race, and I had to do a little bit of lift and coast now and then, and the last few laps in a different engine mode, but I knew I could make it to the end without a pit stop, so yeah, in the end it wasn't that close, but yeah, glad that we could also battle the Porsche on pace in the end, so that was good.
Yeah, absolutely. We did watch some of the spinning back markers through Sector 1 that you and Luke were trying to navigate, and it looked like, we did mention it on stream that the Porsche's fuel tank isn't the greatest in the world, but how much fuel saving were you doing? So you did a bit of lift and coast. Was that true for you as well, Nard?
Yeah, slightly. I think we did like 3 laps in engine mode 2, and then we still had a liter and a half left at the end, so it wasn't too bad.
Now, a liter and a half is cutting it rather close, so props for the confidence for sure. But we did wonder, I'm guessing there were no team orders for those last couple of corners.
No, we were going at it. No, we were just, Sam was so much in front, so I said, okay, you want to do a photo finish, give the spectators something to talk about.
Yeah, he secretly wanted to overtake me, but...
Yeah, I tried.
Yeah, that's one of those, just slow down a bit for me, slow down a bit. I promise I won't come past, I promise. Yeah, that last still as it always does. I think we're joined also by Medema. It was an interesting race from you as well. It looks like we thought you were running away with it with 4 seconds to second place in silver, and then I think you had a bit of a mistake and had to make it all up again.
Yeah, I was following Ambrosia. I let him pass because he's a pro driver, so I thought, okay, I'll just follow him. And he started making a lot of small mistakes. So okay, I thought, yeah, let's pass because he made another mistake. And then right after, the corner after that, I made a mistake. So yeah, it was kind of a little bit downhill from there, but I was able to pick myself back up and keep it out of the wall and yeah, get my pace back and get the lead back.
Yeah, I think we've been saying through the whole cast that silver has been by far the most feisty class today. There was some fantastic fights. So did you end up caught up in a lot of that, and how pressured did you feel in those big groups?
Actually, yeah, I did get caught up a lot of it, but yeah, a lot with the group where the Wild Things were in, the team. Mm-hmm. They were really feisty, really hard to overtake, and really defensive. And it took me a long time to overtake one, and then they had to come together with someone else, and it was really an active group. Yeah.
Yeah, it looked like a fun one to be in for sure. And wow, so congratulations on your outward. It looks like you were caught up in that group as well for a while.
Thanks. Yeah, I felt I had a good pace, and I was trying to keep up with them. I felt that I was even faster, but overtaking apparently is not so easy on Nurburgring.
No, absolutely not in the wet either as well. It's stacking things against you to try and get through. We saw a couple of packs getting very close, but yeah, you were in the middle of that silver pack for quite some time, and then I think that Fredriksson had to pit towards the end, which gave you the position.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, it was a brilliant drive to watch you fight these silver drivers right to the line, pretty much.
Yeah, was just at a certain moment a bit fed up because I overtook a silver driver and he tapped me in the rear, which made me lose some position, so could have even been better. But then I saw I could take Fredriksson again, so I took the victory in M. So quite happy in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. The incidents happen, but it's about getting back on and driving consistently and quickly. And if you managed to do that today, well deserved victory.
Thanks. Yeah, it seems that the rain suits me, and the Lexus really is a beast of a car. It's a very good car. Very happy with it.
It certainly sounds like a beast whenever we ride on board, but you're a braver man than I driving it in the rain, that's for sure.
Well, I must say, last season I drove the Bentley, and I can tell you that was a lot worse. So no, the Lexus was okay. I had a good setup, that helps some people. So.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I've been informed that Patrick has left us. His headset has died, and he has gone. So he started the stream alone, and it sounds like I'm ending it alone. So it's been a fun one for sure. But yeah, no, congratulations to Sam for the win in Pro Nard. Commiserations for not quite finishing it and taking your teammate on the last corner as we know you wanted to do. Congratulations to you and Lucy as well.
Thanks.
And yeah, as you can see here, we'll be at Laguna Seca in a couple of weeks, March the 14th, for more GT3 action if you didn't get enough tonight. I'm sure you did get enough action, but there's a little bit more coming your way. And if you're interested in a bit of a different class, there's the World Touring Car Championship, which is on Thursday nights, so that's coming up at Ningbo. I have probably butchered that name, and I do apologise. So, and lastly, the GT4 series, alternating with this. I think, is it at Barcelona or Switzerland today? Next week. I think that's Barcelona, so I'm definitely getting my dates correct. So we'll get to see them at Barcelona, unfortunately still with the dreaded chicane that we'll hopefully lose for the calendar for real life racing, rather soon.
I made it back.
You made it back?
I made it back. I found my spare headset. Well, my spare headset didn't work, so then I had to find my earpods. But I'm guessing we're basically running down now. We're done.
Yeah, we're just running towards the end now. Some final comments and some thank yous, and we've just shown, gone through all of the races that you can watch here at SSRI on a regular basis on the YouTube channel. So make sure you don't go anywhere. And I think if there's nothing else to show, it might be thank you from me, Patrick, and the broadcast team here. It's been a brilliant race, and thank you for attending.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, and have a good one.